Hi, my name is Brendan, and I have a video today for all of my teacher friends. So, all I want to do today is relax. As you can see, we're we're having some fun with the Halloween cafe. Relax, get your blanket, get your cup of tea or hot chocolate, whatever you prefer. And let's talk some teaching like this. Let's talk about some teaching. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that I've noticed. I've done over 350 hours of observation of other classes where I give feedback, I observe, I give feedback on interactions, on methodologies used, on the teaching stature, teaching posture, positions, really anything that can happen. And I give some sort of ideas, not as to how the teacher can improve, but maybe other ways to add a little bit of a little bit of spice, a little bit of salt bay into the class. One thing I think is very important for for everyone, for you, for all teachers, all administrators to understand is that there is not a single best way of teaching. I'll repeat that. There is not a single best way of teaching. Now, what do I mean by that? I think it's pretty clear that the way I teach will be different from the way you teach. It's clear that a new teacher, the way a new teacher teaches, will be very different from the way that an experienced teacher teaches. And even between experienced teachers, there are different ways that these people will teach, but that doesn't mean that their way of teaching is incorrect. Think of it like personalities. Think of it like personalities. If we try to be someone that we're not, it's clear. You understand. You can sort of perceive that the person is trying to do something that they obviously are not comfortable with, but they're not their authentic self. They aren't their authentic self. And one thing I've noticed with teaching, I've tried lots and lots and lots of methodologies. There are some methodologies that just do not work for me at all, at all. I mean, I know how to teach them. I know that I've read books, I've read articles, I have even experienced them in classes, and it's just not the methodology for me as a teacher. Maybe as a student, I enjoy it. As a teacher, it just does not work. On the other hand, from the other side, the teacher that's teaching me is an expert at this methodology, and the way that she or he they teach this methodology is phenomenal, and I really, really, really get into it. So, when we get down to it, I guess each person has their own methodology, that each person has their own personality, in the same way that each teacher will have their own preferred approach to teaching and learning. I think as a novice teacher, that's very important for people to understand that, you know, it's scary going into middle school, high school, even elementary school, university, teaching teachers, for example. Oh, it's not easy. But if you can take it from the perspective that each time you teach, let's see, what can I use to show you this? Each time you teach, you are sort of wiping away some of the dust, some of the, I guess, the dirt, the grime. So in the end, you can have something that looks beautiful. I hope this is beautiful for you. For me, it's pretty. But in the end, you can have something beautiful. The more you teach, the more you start to discover what works for you. That's when you start to realize that, you start to shift toward the methodology. I think naturally, we start to shift toward the methodology, the approach that works best for us. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes frustration for sure. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many times how many times I've tried really, really, really tried to adapt myself to a methodology that in the end did not work for me. It did not work. And so, of course, I feel a little bit, I wasted my time. Why was I doing this for so many months, for so many weeks? But in the end, I started shifting toward my preferred type of teaching, which is more narrative based. And it's interesting to think about how many different types of teaching and how many different types of styles and approaches and methodologies there are to teaching. It's not it's not as linear as we might think. We're taught, I guess, I was very lucky in that my professors, and especially in my bachelor's degree and my licence, were very, very open to trying all different kinds of approaches. So I went directly into film-based learning, into storyboarding, into the Socratic approach, into silent way methodology. I mean, there were so many different ways, different styles of teaching. A lot of them came from Latin, if you can imagine. I mean, wow, Latin teachers really have some of the most, excuse my language, but badass approaches to teaching. So, if you're ever curious about learning new methodologies, I recommend looking up how Latin teachers teach, because I've learned a lot from them. Um, Shifting our focus a little bit, we talked a little bit about, how each person has their own, unique style, unique approach that works for them. I guess it's also important to note that, when we start teaching, and it's not even when we start, it can be years down the line, we get to that point where, okay, we've developed our own methodology, our own approach to teaching, it works, we feel comfortable in it, we've developed creative classes, we've created a program, a curriculum, many curricula for some people, and then there are these sort of triggers, I guess, that happen in teaching where we start to question our ability. And I say we because I also did this as well. I also did this. I remember that it was the best time to question my ability as a teacher because I was being observed not only by one master student, but two master students for a class that was online. And I was having this online class at a center. I was in a room that was right in front of the welcome. How can you say, like the welcome center, basically the front desk of the building. And all the walls were transparent, so everyone could see me. And I was in the middle of teaching a class. And it was a pretty nice class. I mean, it was a class I put on my teaching portfolio. It was a class about Winter Wonderland. It was an English class. If I remember correctly, it was a class that used lyrics training. We focused a lot on listening skills. We talked about the songs. We talked about how the meanings, how winter and what winter means for, it was in depth. It was very conversational. It was a fun class. It was pretty normal but fun class. But some little voice in my head told me, this is not good enough. This is not, you're not doing what the students need you to do. You're not on the one hand. On the other hand, you should. So I had, you're not doing this, you should be doing this, fighting. It's like a war inside my head. And at one point, I think it was about 40 minutes, or 40 minutes the way through the class, I told the student, I completely changed the class thing, and I said, all right, you all talk about this, I will be right back. I put myself on mute, I turned off my video, and in front of two observers, imagine two observers, to one. Both of them were actually professional teachers as well. And in front, in front of the entire office, I burst into tears. I just sat there and I didn't. I just had this sort of how can you say this moment of doubt, I guess, of just insecurity, extreme insecurity. I'll be honest. And I realized that, they were shocked, obviously. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to act. I was completely vulnerable at this point. And, you know, thinking back to this, I realized that that point was probably one of the major turning points of my teaching career because not only did it humble me, obviously crying in front of in front of two professionals at work in front of, I think there were like 10, 15 people there at the front desk who were just watching me. One of them, well, one or two of them were new clients, and so one new students, new clients, and in their head they must have been thinking, "Oh my gosh, this even the teachers cry here." I don't. I'm going bye bye. I can't even imagine what they were thinking, but I still think that, in retrospect, looking back, I think this was one of the biggest turning points of my teaching career because, even though I don't remember everything, every aspect of what happened, this was about 3.5 years ago, actually 3.5 years ago. So after 6.5 years of teaching, I finally had this boom, this boom moment where I really put everything into question. I asked myself, is this really the career for me? Is this what I want to do? Am I good enough for this position? Am I going to make a difference? How can I make a difference if I was at that point, I think I was what, I guess 3.5 years ago, I would have been 24. I was a 24-year-old boy. Boy, honestly, not a man, 24-year-old boy who had no idea what he was doing. I mean, I was doing my best. I was teaching on the side. I was doing my best basically to survive, I was trying to make money, trying to do everything that I could just to at least make a small change, make a small aha moment appear, happen for these students. And you know, I think that's one thing it's frustrating about teaching, but at the same time, notice that when you do get noticed for that, when you do realize, your worth, when you do get thanks from the students, it's so rewarding. So let me backtrack a little bit. When what I'm saying is that, we don't know really, we don't always know how our teaching, how our lessons, how, what we're doing actually affects students. I mean, it's not only about how do they like the class, but do they learn something from it? Can they take something from these lessons we take so long to prepare? Do they actually take something from this and move forward? Does it help them in their lives? Does it allow them to, does it open the door for them, And it's frustrating because we don't really know that, except for the few students who come back and say, thank you, thank you, Teacher Brendy. We've had, thanks to such and such lesson, thanks to this lesson, I was able to do this and this and this. That's so rewarding to have. It's so rewarding to have that feedback. And I guess that's why I kind of started this sort of um, feedback project, I guess we can call it that. So when I started observing, my first classes were at a center in Istanbul, in Turkey, and my first classes that I observed were in a center in Istanbul. And I thought that's not true. No, it was here in France. It was here in France. And it was for a BTS, a technical school. And then I went over to Istanbul and started doing feedback there. But I really put my heart into it because I know that it's exactly what I would want from them. If they were to observe my classes, I would want the same sort of feedback. Obviously, maybe not as intense because, listen, I have I have pretty high expectations for my feedback, but at least they had a really nice, full comprehensive um, return, retour in French, a nice, a nice, I guess, complete thoughts, the complete thoughts, ideas, things that could help them in their future career. And you sort of, I guess, when we're looking at feedback, we I took a look at the things that were good, the things that were present in the class. I noted those because it's very, very, very important to note those. And after that, what I did is I looked for the little holes. What are some holes that I could help fill in that feedback? And if we go back to my very dramatic class where I cried in front of all those people, it's I guess that was something that was missing. I wish I could have had that sort of feedback, that sort of um, I didn't need, the 5, 10 pages of feedback that I would give for each of the classes that I watched. That was intense. But, at least to have a certain, some small conversation of, hey, this is what I really liked. I really liked about this class. I wish I want to use this in my classes. I also noticed this. Maybe we can talk about ways that we can improve this together. It's having that sort of feedback really would have helped me to feel more comfortable, not only but also to take the good out of what I do in my classes, and then start to internalize, okay, where are the holes? What can I fill? What can I do to improve the lesson, not only for myself but for the students? So, talking a lot about switching topics a little bit, but I'm hoping to connect it with this. If we change the word lesson, class, to experience, and if we think about each lesson as a unique experience that can be connected to other experiences as well, if we think of it as an experience, what can we do to change, to improve the experience for our students? What can we do to improve the experience for ourselves? Because like it or not, you are a part of this. We are a part of this experience. We are a very big part of this experience. We could be in a teaching methodology where we stand at the back and the students are the center of the lesson. It could be a very direct approach where the teacher is the center and the students go to the teacher in order to be helped. I mean, there are so many different approaches to teaching, but in every single case, the teacher is also a big part of the experience. Even if the teacher isn't in the classroom, the fact is the teacher created the class, and so the teacher is a central part of the experience. And so one thing, I guess, my charge to you, my challenge to you is to take a second, take a few seconds. Take a few minutes if you want. Take a few hours if you have it. I know I don't, but if you have it, go ahead and take a few moments and just think about the best class you ever had. The best meaning, what is the class that you are most proud of? What is the class that makes you smile the most? That could be class or classes. And then also compare that to the class that you are the most ashamed of. Because listen, I had some classes where I walked in and as soon as I started the class, I said, oh no, I am a mess right now. I have no idea what I'm saying. These people are way smarter than I am. I have no idea where I'm going with this class, but well, let's keep going. Now, what are some differences between these two classes? What are some parts that you are proud of in both classes? Where are the holes in both classes? Because even in the best classes, there will still be some holes, There'll still be some holes. Not only what can we improve, but what can you improve for yourself? What can you improve as a teacher that would make the experience more interesting for you and for your students? I think interest is a really key word when it comes to teaching. And it's difficult to engage all the students, because everyone has their own personality, everyone has their own. Hold on, let me take a second. All right, this is a good idea. Everyone has their own, their own likes and dislikes. My humor is very, very, very dad joke, redneck. Like, I, who's the person? There's a character, Penelope Funk or something. Where it's quite new actually. Compared to here we're in 2023. She walks around and she tries to tell history from a person that seemingly has never had a history class in their life, and I love it. It's exactly my kind of humor. But maybe the humor is not yours. Maybe your students have a different kind of humor. I know as an American, I know that I know very, very clearly, I can tell very, very clearly that the sort of Gen Z vocabulary is completely different than my millennial vocabulary. We even speak differently. We even speak differently. I mean, I have never, ever, ever, I would have never thought that in one of my English classes that somebody asks me, "Hey, teacher, what is Riz?" Riz, oh my gosh. Ask somebody else. That's not me. I don't have Riz. I smile a lot, but that's it. Yeah. Plus the student was like 12 years old, so there's no way I'm gonna show Riz to a 12-year-old. No, 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 no. Not for teacher Brendy. But anyway, getting back to the topic. If I remember correctly, we were talking about um, the ways in which. All right, all right. It's difficult to please everyone in the classroom, but what in these two classes that you saw, what were the moments that, what are some ways in which you can make the experience more interesting to you? Because like I was saying with interest is really obvious to feel, to see, and also to feel. But the teacher is not interested in the classes. How do you think the students are going to feel? I mean, it's so easily understood, translatable through the body language of the teacher. Take a second to think about it. One thing that I'm very grateful to my Latin teacher in at university, back in my bachelor's degree. I was very lucky to have a teacher who gave us the opportunity to go teach classes. So we were teaching intermediate Latin classes at the university to some of our friends, which was a little bit weird to have this sort of shift in the hierarchy. But after each class, we had a mandatory reflections paper. So basically, there were no real guidelines as to the reflections. It's just, what did you feel? What did you think? What do you think went well? What didn't go well? What could you improve? What do you think you'd like to keep the same? Do you sense what do you sense in the classroom? How did students react? What did you see on their faces? I think having this sort of reflection paper, it doesn't have to be a paper, but even just, 2 paragraphs. I remember one time for one of my classes, I wrote 5 pages, front and back, so that's 10 pages for my reflections, because that was just there was so much to tell. And then for the very next class, I wrote 2 paragraphs. There is no mandatory length, but at least having that reflection behind what happened, how do I feel? Having this checkup with yourself, like what we're doing right now, having this checkup with yourself and, seeing what you liked, how the experience was for you. Because a reflection paper, I mean, nowadays we live in a society, in an educational society where grades are basically the indicator of the student experience. There are ways we can change that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when we talk, but one thing that's not really talked about is the teacher experience. We have our. I remember when I worked at a high school and a middle school in the South, I did have those meetings with my supervisors, um, with my head teacher, to talk about how I was feeling. What's going on in the classes. How is everything doing? Is there anything that the teacher can help me with? The head teacher can help me out with? Things like this. But one thing that's also really important is to have that sort of reflection, that sit down, that checkup with yourself, and to really talk to yourself, or just write to yourself. If you feel comfortable, sitting in the corner and saying, "Hello, Brendan. How are you today?" "Oh, I'm doing okay, Brendan. How are you doing?" If you're okay doing that, then great. Power to you. But if you feel more comfortable writing, it's good sometimes actually to write. I know when my head is really, really full of information, so much happening, so much going through my head, I feel so much better after I write it out on a piece of paper. I actually use my hand to write things out. I'm not sure how I feel on the computer, but in any case, it takes all of this gunk, all of this stress, all these words, all this mess in my head, and it gets thrown out on the paper. It's psychologically, it's so relaxing. Yeah, it's so relaxing. So I recommend that you do that. It's nice to clear your head every now and then. And in future, if these kind of teacher checkups are interesting or of interest to you, in a future teacher checkup, I'd like to talk a little bit about being overwhelmed at work. I know that's something that a lot of teachers deal with. I know that not only the workload but critiques, the comparison to other teachers, comparison to how students feel. There's so many things we can talk about there. But for now, I just want to focus on the fact that the fact that reflections and taking time to think about the experience for yourself to really improve. I mean, that takes a lot of stress off of you. It takes a lot of stress off of us, honestly, for both of us, all of us. There's a lot we can do there. There's a lot we can do there. I think, I started talking a few minutes ago. I started talking about, how we're a very grade-based society, educational society. And there are other other ways that we can handle that as well, With the experience, it's important to get feedback. Like what I've been saying since the beginning of this checkup, it's important to get feedback and to see how the experience has affected all stakeholders, all people involved in the teaching learning experience. So if we talk about the students, we can see how they do with, formative, summative assessment. It's okay, but we're talking more about performance and about comprehension than we are about how the students actually feel. If you're like me and you are faced with classes of 40 plus people, 40 plus students, it may be difficult to have a one-on-one sit down. It may be really, really difficult to have that. I was really lucky in high school. In my French 3rd class, I had a teacher she was phenomenal. She's by far one of the best teachers I've ever had. And I remember that she took us out. It was our French class. Of course, we had an oral exam where we had to speak in French about a topic. She would ask us questions and she'd speak French, and we'd speak in French for about 5 or so minutes. While the others were in the classrooms, we were outside. While they were in the classroom, writing, doing the writing portion of the test, multiple choice, pictures, differentiated things like that, essays, things like that. But this teacher was very particular. She's very special in that the oral exam was in 2 parts. The first part, of course, was the assessment. Basically, it's not only seeing what we could do in French, how we could interact in French, how we could respond to the questions, how we could listen, understand, respond, interact, how we could ask other questions, things like that. It's the first part. But the second part, perhaps the most important, was a small checkup. It was only 2 or 3, 2 to 5 minutes, but well, not even 5 minutes, but 2 to 3, 4 minutes. But it was a small checkup just to say, how are you doing? I remember she came up to me and she said, Brendan, how are you doing? What's new? What is not what's new, but how are you doing? How are you feeling in this class? Is there anything is there anything you like? Is there anything that is causing you stress? Is there anything that you would like to change? And it was really touching because I was able to give my perspective, and so she as a teacher was able to receive feedback about the class at the end of the unit. At the end of each unit, she did this. And so let me tell you, these tests lasted forever. But I will say that she was able to get feedback about these classes and about her classes, about her teaching, about our emotional and mental state. Do we have any headspace for more topics? Are we in need of a more low energy? Are we low energy right now? Are we in need of a more relaxed class next time? Do we need a film? Do we need to go outside? Do we need fresh air? She was able to understand that just by asking the question, how are you? How is everything going? And then of course you get some people who like me who say, well, listen here, I don't like this and this and this and this. I'm let's say very assertive. Yeah. I know exactly what I want and what I don't want, so I'm sorry for my teacher. But it's sort of these little checkups, these small bits of feedback, and it doesn't have to be too long. But having that sort of one-on-one, or even it could be even a group thing. It could be that you task the students to you put them into groups. It can be with friends. It can be without different people, and you talk and you get them to talk about and create a sort of list, even a diagram, maybe it could be a mind map of what they would like in their class. I know one of the things that I do when I start a new job, a new teaching career. If I start at a new high school, if I start in a new teaching center, if I start a new class online, one of the first things I do is I do a red flag, green flag exercise, especially with kids. It works a lot with kids and teenagers. It's a red flag, green flag exercise, and then I put a red flag, bam, on the board. I put a green flag, boom, on the board, and I ask them to talk to me. Or they can either write up on the board, come up to the board and write up on the board, or they can write a list on a piece of paper and give it to me at the end of the class. This way I have an understanding of where their limits are. We start off the class by creating our boundaries. We know how to respect one another. We know how to, what we personally need. For example, what I personally need from the students, what each student personally needs from me as a teacher. And by understanding the boundaries, by understanding these, we're able to have a more, I guess, not really intimate relationship, but we're able to respect each other more, and classes move a lot more smoothly. So bringing that back to the sort of checkup, perhaps having a checkup is not something the students are used to. I know that I was shocked the first time because I didn't expect my teacher, who's very very professional, to come and ask me how I'm doing. I didn't know how to respond to that. I didn't know if I should talk about should I talk about the fact that it's very difficult at home? Should I talk about the fact that oh, my cat just ran away? Or should I talk about the fact that I am stressed because I don't know what to do for college? I mean, there are lots of different things that were going through my head. But at least having this, open, clear air, open air environment where I could just talk. It's very limited time, but of course, where I could just talk and say, look, blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. It gave me an opportunity to start. If I had never done this before, so it gave me an opportunity to start expressing my opinion, and little by little, I noticed that my opinions, I don't like this and this and this, my opinions became a lot shorter, a lot more succinct, a lot more precise, and I was able to clearly articulate after 1 year of doing this every single month. I was able to clearly articulate what I needed, what I wanted, what I didn't want, what was affecting me, and together we were able to come up with a solution as to, okay, because after this, sometimes she didn't always do this, but sometimes she would come back in and she'd say, okay, the next class she'd come back in and she'd say, okay, so this is what I've heard from the feedback. These are some of the topics that people talked about. These are some of the ideas that people had. I want to spend the next 5-10 minutes and think about what we can do moving forward. Here are some of the solutions that I came up with. What do you think? By giving students, and I think even as young as sixth graders, when they enter middle school, I think giving them a sort of ownership in how the class works, it's not only giving them a voice in how they're learning, and a voice in their learning, it also gives them so much respect. It gives them so much. It gives them the ability to decide and to really think about how they would like to move forward. And like I told you, it's a skill, it's a soft skill that helped me to become more articulate in what I wanted, helped me to be more succinct in how I spoke and how I wrote. And in all, I mean, perhaps it's a bit scary because, some people may think, oh, it's too intimate of a relationship between teacher and student. Okay. At the same time, when else are the students going to have the chance, the opportunity to learn how to voice their opinion? I don't know how many, I can't tell you how much I respect and thank this teacher for all that she did to give me skills that went beyond learning French, that went beyond speaking and interacting in a foreign language. It was really, it's a thank you that I can't express in words. And in all, it's hard for me to come up with the words right now. I'm someone who always knows what he wants, but it's hard for me to come up with the words right now. I think if I can summarize what I'm trying to say in one sentence, it would be that the confidence that you can have in yourself, the confidence that you can give your students through these vulnerable moments, these checkups, through these moments of reflection, these are the moments that are the turning point in careers. These are the moments that allow you to move to the next level. And sometimes I feel stagnant. I feel like I stagnate sometimes in my teaching. And it's when I come across a challenge like that. That's what it is, really. That's what it is. It's a challenge. This, being faced with this imposter syndrome, being faced with this question of, am I good enough? That being faced with, 40 plus students and saying, oh man, what do I do now? These are challenges. And I guess it's not only how we approach them, but because the approach is only the first part. It comes full cycle with the reflection. It comes full cycle with the feedback you receive. And for me, I suppose that's one of the keys to having confidence in yourself as a teacher. Also having confidence in your students and giving your students the confidence that comes from having a voice in their learning, having a voice in the lessons and the learning, in their experiences. So I'll stop here for today, but I wanted to thank you, all of you, for this very long checkup. I was expecting it to be 20 minutes, but I'm a blabbermouth. I love talking. So I want to thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, if you have any ideas, any thoughts that you'd like to share, go ahead and put them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for, well, in any case, whether you like or subscribe or not, I will continue making these videos because I'm having fun. So take care, have a great day, and see you next time.